As Luke mentioned, my name is Cory Vokey, and I lead the service business for Canada for Red Hat. But before I begin, I'd like to thank you for your time today. I know everybody is busy these days, and we really appreciate you spending the day with us. I will tell you, though, before I start, I've been told and given a lot of feedback in my presentations not to tell jokes to ease the mood. Now, I do that, by the way, to make me feel comfortable up on stage, because I always do get a little nervous, and I've been doing this for quite some time. So instead of telling a joke, I'm going to tell a story. So this time last year, I was in Western Canada, and I was presenting in front of 1,200 people. Okay, so again, I like to tell a joke, especially in a large audience. I mean, it's 1,200 people. It's a bit overwhelming. So I decided to tell a Newfie joke. Okay, and just so you know, you'll see in the accent, I've been born and raised in Newfoundland. And it's my God-given right, as a Newfie, to tell Newfie jokes. And you know what? You can feel free to laugh. It's okay. I'm doing it myself. It's good. But, so I said this joke, and 5 seconds after saying it, I looked across the audience. I was laughing frantically, and nobody even giggled. So needless to say that it was a pretty uncomfortable experience, and I promise never to do that again. So anyway, you're welcome for making you uncomfortable. As Luke mentioned, I'd like to go over a bit about my background. I recently joined Red Hat from Cisco. Prior to getting into the vendor space, I was an executive at TD Bank. And I should say, I spent approximately 18 years on the customer side all in. So firsthand, I've sat in your seats, I've noticed and I know the issues that you go through day in, day out. As I mentioned, about 3 years as an executive at a large bank. I had a team of approximately 300 engineers and a budget of $150 million. So in that role, our core responsibility was to modernize the infrastructure, so the legacy environment at the bank, and introduce open source technologies. We introduced OpenStack, we introduced Hadoop, and we also introduced various other DevOps practices. So it was a great role, and quite frankly, I learned a lot. And got a lot of scars on my back for it as well, by the way, but we'll go through that later in the presentation. Before that, I spent approximately 8 years in BlackBerry. So I had roles ranging from engineering, software development, architecture, and I left there as a leader in charge of global IT operations. So please don't get me wrong, I'm not here to stand up and grandstand and talk about myself for a half hour. What I'm here to say, though, and attest to, is that I've personally firsthand seen the power and the positive effects of open source in large enterprise environments, both from a technology perspective, but more importantly from a cultural one. And I will say I'm probably the only previous title officer at any financial institution with actually a Linux tattoo on his left shoulder. Since 2001, true story. I'll do showings later this afternoon. But needless to say, I'm branded. Very proud to be a part of the Red Hat team and very proud to be presenting in front of you today. So today's presentation are broken up into 3 parts. I'm going to cover technology modernization as an overall industry issue. And I'm going to give a high-level overview of Red Hat Consulting Services, who we are. And then I'm going to discuss 2 out of the many service offerings that we offer. First, I'm going to go over our application migration services. And lastly, I'm going to go over how we assist our clients in their journey to DevOps. Now, as with any presentation I do, I sort of overlay some personal experiences and stories, so I hope you guys find that enjoyable as well. So technology modernization. Now, this is an issue that was really brought to me when I entered the bank many years ago. You finance guys out there will know this is IT currency. It's probably the most interesting challenge that we have in our environments today, and it's the biggest opportunity we have to affect change. So I'll step back a little bit. An interesting thing happened during the economic meltdown in 2007. The majority of IT environments took their budget to uplift their hardware, uplift their technology, and deferred that budget year over year. For example, if you're a large enterprise and your budget was $20 million a year, normally you would spend the $20 million a year in maintaining currency. 2007, they invested in other areas of the business. That resulted in a compounding effect over time. So each year you do not address your currency, do not modernize your environment, the complexities grow and grow and grow to out of control. To this point in time, you fast forward 7 to 8 years, normal enterprise, $20 million a year, you now have a $1 billion problem on your hands. And that's not a $1 billion problem throughout the industry. That's a $1 billion problem per large enterprise. I mean, it's enormous. And over the past year, or past, say, 10 years or so, the effects and drains on an environment, on an IT environment, because of the growth that we've seen, is enormous. And quite frankly, the fact of keeping just the lights on and maintaining this legacy environment is locking the majority of IT groups today. I remember a previous executive of mine. He was pretty eccentric, extremely bright. He was our CTO at the time. And he said, Cory, you know, if you're coming to me with a proposal, and if it's a your mess for less proposal, and what he meant by that is, I'm going to take my legacy processes, my legacy applications, and I'm going to expect to put this on a net new shining environment. He said, you know what, forget it, get out of my office. He said, I've been there, done that, it doesn't work. And he's true. So if you look at the majority of organizations today, we're very siloed, and we've compartmentalized each of our technologies. In any environment today, you have a storage group, you have a network group, you have a compute group, you have a virtualization group, you have a database group, and I will finish in a second, sorry. You have a middleware group, you have a security group, you have a facilities group, and a whole bunch of application groups. And for somehow, we're all supposed to get along and actually drive something forward. Each one of these groups have their own executives, they have their own managers, and they have their own people doing the work. So even from a cultural and political perspective, it's very hard to get all these groups on one direction. It's next to impossible. Let alone from a technology perspective. Trying to touch now, after say 5 to 7 years of not touching the environment, touching one of these components has ripple effects throughout your entire environment. Okay? We all went through, and I would imagine are still going through, the Windows 2003 issue. Everyone nodding their heads? Right? So a lot of environments today have up to 10 to 15,000 operating system instances, have petabytes of storage. Okay, so you have Windows 2003 come along, and everyone looked at it to say, okay, it's just Windows 2003 problem. We're going to now just upgrade it, and we're going to be good. 2012 R2. Okay, so start up a program, build a whole new greenfield environment. Let's go. The fact of the matter is, most organizations look at that problem as an infrastructure up problem. So they solve it by building a net new greenfield environment. And then the majority of organizations we see, and by the way, I was surprised as well, a lot of failures over here too. What ends up happening is you see a lot of surprises on the back end. So there are dependencies left, right, and center. So wait a minute, 2012 R2, the application that you're looking to migrate doesn't run on it. Wait a minute, you have a version of SQL that doesn't run on this. Wait a minute, your middleware doesn't run. There are dependencies all over the place. So it's not hard to see if you have an application landscape of about 3,000 plus applications in a large enterprise, you will for sure start accumulating a $1 billion problem over time. There's another interesting trend going on in the industry, or I should say situation that we are in as IT professionals today. And I'll, again, tell another story. When I was at the bank, the main CIO, his name was Kevin, he had about 25,000 people reporting to him and a budget of $2.5 billion. And for some reason, he took a liking to me. So I got an hour with him every 2 weeks, which really is an hour a month. I mean, it canceled every second time or whatever. But he asked me when I initially joined, he said, what are some of your observations? I said to him, Kevin, I'm going to put it this way. I'm going to tell you a story, but you got to bear with me because it won't make sense till the end. So I'm a core technologist. I mean, I've got a Linux tattoo on my shoulder. And I said, I'm having a hard time communicating upward, an extremely hard time. And people look at me like I'm speaking a different language. I don't think I fit in. And he said, okay, well, why is that? And I said, okay, I'm going to put it this way. I said, again, I'm a core technologist. If I saw that there was a job opening to be the head of the cancer ward for a major hospital, Kevin, do you think I'd apply? He said, where are you going with this? I said, as I mentioned, bear with me. It'll come clear. And I said, okay, I wouldn't. Like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I don't know anything about cancer other than it's bad. So I said, you're really not going to get what you expect having me lead that group. He goes, okay, point taken. I said, so why is it in technology? We have technology leaders that are looking to drive change who've never written a line of code, who've never deployed a system, quite frankly, who don't know IT. And yet I'm trying to communicate and trying to make change. I said, it's extremely hard. Now when I say this, these individuals are not stupid by no means. They're usually finance people or program managers, and they're usually the best in their field. So, but they're not duds, right? But it was extremely challenging for me to try to drive the type of change that we're trying to drive. And the reason why I highlight it is that the dynamic environment that we all work in IT today, it's extremely important that whatever change we're looking to make, it's not just a technology one, that we tie it back to real business problems. And I will tell you, the majority of organizations I work with, the large enterprises, have major technology problems from a legacy perspective, IT currency problems, major budgets. And if you can tie net new, innovative, modern ideas like you're hearing throughout today to a real business problem like this and showcase how we can solve these problems once and for all, you'll have success in moving the bar forward. And as soon as I figured that out, by the way, I'm kind of slow, so it took about a year, doors started opening up and it started to become clear. So I know from a technology presentation, this is sort of a boring topic, but I think it's an extremely important one. And it's one that's on the agenda of most organizations. And again, if you can tie it back to solving this problem, you'll have success moving forward. So I think I've belabored that point enough. Moving on to Red Hat Consulting. So who are we? So we're a team of 400 consultants who are globally dispersed. Now, when I say globally dispersed, roughly about 90% of us are across North America. We are experts in open source technology, and we help our clients implement the technologies that we support and get to done. Okay, what we are not is a bum in a seat. So we're not just basically a consulting arm that's going to get a bunch of guys on your bench and stay there for as long as possible till you kick them out. Right? Our approach is to come in, assist you with your implementation or your project, train and uplift your team through our mentoring services, and get out. A typical engagement for Red Hat Consulting ranges anywhere between 3 months and 6 months. And again, we're not interested, well, we are interested in some ways, but for the most part, a typical engagement doesn't last longer than 6 months. And again, our goal is to make sure that our clients are self-sufficient afterwards. A typical engagement for us ranges between infrastructure and application development engagements. So an example of an infrastructure engagement would be a Satellite 6 upgrade or installation, would be deploying Ansible, would be doing a Red Hat RHEL health check. And then in the middle of the spectrum, implementing a PaaS solution like Openshift. And in my opinion, Openshift sort of straddles both infrastructure and application. And as Mark mentioned, we have multiple engagements ongoing right now where we help our clients develop next generation modern applications. So it's an extremely interesting business to be in. And again, I'm extremely proud to be a part of this team. That should change. So I'm moving on now to application migrations. This is a good segue. So this is one of the most interesting service offerings that we have. And it really sort of goes well with the whole IT modernization discussion. Now, every vendor you speak with more than likely has an application migration solution. The difference is, though, we take our application migration approach from the application down. Our consultants are experts in infrastructure and application development. And that's key. Any program that I've ever seen take an infrastructure up approach usually results in embarrassment, missed budgets, and I'll be harsh, utter complete failure for the most part. I'll give an example. When I was at the bank, I met with one of the CIOs for a line of business. And I met with her with a proposal. And the proposal was, it's going to take $10 million for you to uplift your current application. And this is one of many that she had. But this one was up for refresh. And from my opinion, I think I did a pretty good job laying out the costs and sort of depicting where she was today and how she needed to get to where she needed to be. But then what she said to me was, Cory, that all makes sense, great work and everything else. She said, well, what does the application do? I said, well, I don't know, I run the engineering group, and you tell me, I really just don't know. And she's, okay, well, I'm going to need you to find out. So she got me in touch with a member of her team. We did an analysis over a couple of days, and what we found was that the application supported a couple of hundred internal users. And another interesting item we found is that the capabilities of this application have been duplicated throughout the environment elsewhere. So with that information, she said, well, you know what? I'm going to make your job really easy. I'm going to save 10 million bucks. I'm going to have you retire this whole application infrastructure, and then we can go. So that's perfect. So thank you. And that's the value of looking at an application first. I also spent a small stint as a consultant, and I did a really interesting engagement that I'll share with you guys. This is back in, I think it was 2014. And I was called in by the CIO of a healthcare organization. And the CIO, she wasn't a technology person, but she spent a lot of time at vendor EBCs. And at that time, she thought public cloud was it. Like, you know what? You've got to go to public cloud. That's just, there's nothing else. So she hired me to come in over 2 weeks and build out a plan for her to get there. So I said, okay, no problem at all. And her expectation, by the way, was she's going to take her IT environment today and put the whole thing, soup to nuts, in the public cloud. And her expectation is going to be considerably less expensive to do so. So I said to her, I said, okay, well, why don't we start with this? Why don't I take a small subset of your environment? So they had a small dev test environment of 100 VMs. Now keep in mind, this was an enterprise of 30,000 people. Now as a healthcare organization, the majority of these individuals weren't IT users, they were nurses and healthcare workers. But nevertheless, it was an environment, and they had 6 people running the environment today. And I said, first of all, 6 people running an organization of 30,000 people, I would argue you're pretty efficient as it is. But nonetheless, what we'll do is we'll take your 100 VMs, and just from a cost perspective, I'll look at your costs today, and I'll outline the cost that you're going to take, or you will consume going to a public cloud. I said, no problem. So it took a day or so, did the analysis over 3 cloud providers, and lo and behold, it was actually $2,000 more a year for her to run her environment. Now keep in mind, that's in a your mess for less scenario, so she's taking it as is and putting it into a public cloud. And she's like, geez, okay, well, I expected so much better than this. So what's going on? Was I lied to? I said, no, you're not really lied to. I said, they expect you to basically run the environment in a different way. I said, why don't we put a different lens on this? Why don't we look at changing the way your developers and testers work slightly and see what that effect would be. So why don't we put a system in place where we can automate an environment where developers and testers can come in at the beginning of a day, set up a provisioning script, plumb up their environment, start their work. At the end of the day, they check in the results, and the environment then is stripped down. So, okay, that sounds wonderful. So we did, and we noticed the cost profile of that use case gave her 80% savings over what she was doing previously. So that goes to show, if you're going to take a legacy environment and expect results that differ, be prepared for a surprise. Looking at the infrastructure first, looking at the workload, and marrying it to the right landing zone that makes sense is what Red Hat Consulting is all about. And we will help our clients get there. Throughout the industry, we see comments from our clients that they see, what's the number here, 509% return on investments. Now I'm throwing out big numbers. $1 billion problem, 509% return on investment. Now from the currency discussion for a large enterprise that we just went through, 509% return on investment, doing things different, it's not a hard pill to really swallow. It's not a hard pill to sort of believe. That is definitely doable, and we are seeing that in the industry today. So in short, our migration services, we have the consultants, we have the methodology to assist you in removing technology debt and assisting our clients getting to end a job, and again, getting to a modern environment and solving the technology currency issue, hopefully once and for all. So that leads me into now our journey to DevOps. So this is an interesting one, because I do have a lot of experience in various companies that have implemented DevOps in a very successful manner. And DevOps to me is sort of like security. So I bet you if we polled every individual here in the room, we would get a different definition of what DevOps is. And I bet you we get a different definition of what security is as well. And DevOps to me, in my opinion, is something you just can't buy. It's not a product, right? It's more a culture and a mindset. So as I normally do in my presentations, I'll tell another story. Back in the heyday in BlackBerry, so around 2006, I was running an engineering group that was involved in a huge subscriber-based service. It was 10 million subscribers at that time. And we were growing out of control. So each month we had to deploy a net new data center in another part of the world. And my teams would fly to that part of the world, and over a weekend, they were responsible for laying out our applications to provide the service to that part of the world. So we got some new executives in that are enterprise IT executives from larger companies. And they said, okay, we could look at this problem. We're going to solve this the way we always solve it. So they purchased a tool. It was $20 million. Initiated a team of 100 people. And said, okay, have at it. Now keep in mind, I was the end user of this. And I said, okay, I need to have my guys stop doing all this work. Can I please get some assistance? And make a long story short, a year later, we're really no further ahead. And they said, okay, the tool was faulty. We're sort of sold a bill of goods. This is a proprietary tool, of course. And they said, okay, let's buy another tool. So another 20 million bucks. At that point, the team grew to about 200 people. Okay, no for where I sit, no for more further ahead. Yada, yada, yada. Again, 6 months later, another tool set, another 20 million, no further ahead. So at that point, I said, okay, we're going to solve this problem ourselves. Now, the only reason why I didn't solve it previous was political ones. I didn't want to stomp on any toes. But at this point, I was willing to break some toes. Didn't really care anymore, right? So I said, okay, I had two guys on my team that were extremely bright. I said, guys, just solve this problem for us. So at that point in time, keep in mind this is a long time ago, but we're DevOps before DevOps was a term. They said, okay, no worries. We put together System Imager, PHP front end, and we created a system where we could deploy base images in an automated fashion. And we had a post-implementation script that would do the auto configs for us. And it was written in Ruby over distributed shell. Everything worked extremely well. And in one afternoon, we were able to do what $60 million and 200 people couldn't. And I'm standing here in front of 200 people. I'm not going to lie. It's true. And I can show you guys and walk you through how we did it. Right? And it's amazing. And that's the power of open source. And that's the power of DevOps. And when I say DevOps is a mindset, it's not looking at your technology as a component. You can go and deploy Ansible. Great. And you can have it manage your network. Okay, great. It's just managing your network. And the compute guy's got to do something different, and the storage guy's got to do something different, and the security, and it goes on and on and on. Empowering your people and having the mindset to look at technology as a system that supports basically your application and workload, to me, is DevOps. Now, in my opinion, again, I am biased. I do have a Linux tattoo on my shoulder. Open source and Red Hat has the best products to help you and assist you in creating a DevOps culture and a mindset. But keep in mind, don't be disappointed. If you deploy it in the wrong context, there's going to be an expectation-reality gap. And services can help you close that gap. Now, we've all seen this legacy development process here that's wrought with manual steps, wrought with consistency issues, configuration drift, production incidents, etc. Okay, everyone has seen this. This is the legacy approach that most environments go through today. And the promise of a DevOps culture and implementing the right tools to adhere to that culture and mindset, gets us to this. So a streamlined model that removes the consistency issues and configuration drift we see today, and forces and allows the organizations to focus on what really matters, and not the manual steps. And I will say, I've heard a lot of these larger consulting organizations go through these big transformation exercises. And I tell you, it frustrates the crap out of me. Because what they try to do is to say, okay, you know what? We're going to run IT as a factory. And I will say to you, if anybody comes to you, I don't care if wherever they're from, if they say we're going to run IT as a factory, please kick them out. Right? IT shouldn't be run as a factory. IT should be run in an automated fashion, streamlining and more consolidating than it is separating, moving out. So again, I'll be here all day as well. If you guys differ from any of my opinions, please feel free to contact me or come over. I will definitely love to have a discussion with you on this one. So in short, from a Red Hat perspective, we have competing products that go against every proprietary system out there. Okay, I'm sure you're going to hear about a lot of these products today. They will, again, allow you to adhere to more of a DevOps model and culture. They're much easier to work with. And from my experience, they're pennies on the dollar compared to what you see today. And I will close off with this as well. Recently, we announced Red Hat Open Innovation Labs, which gives our clients the opportunity to test these products in a lab environment that's outside of your own environment. Take an application development idea, run it through alongside open source experts, and see what it's like in real world. And then take that experience back into your own environment, either yourself or through a consulting engagement to progress your initiatives further. So guys, with that, I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of your Red Hat day. Thank you very much. Thank you.